The knock I wasn't expecting. The knock came at 6:42 p.m. I remember the time because my microwave clock was blinking again. Something I kept forgetting to fix. Right as I was pulling a frozen lasagna out of its cardboard sleeve. Tuesday nights were always like that. Quiet. Predictable. A little lonely if I was being honest. No one ever knocked on my door anymore. Not my neighbors. We'd perfected the American art of polite distance. Not my coworkers, I never invited them over. And definitely not family. Family didn't just drop by. So when the knock echoed through my small suburban house in Columbus, Ohio, my first thought wasn't who could that be? It was what did I forget to pay this time? I wiped my hands on a dish towel and stood still listening. Another knock followed. Firmer this time. Like whoever was on the other side knew I was home. My heart started doing that annoying thing where it beats faster for no logical reason. I walked toward the front door, my socks sliding slightly on the hardwood floor, and glanced through the peephole. I almost dropped to my knees, because standing on my porch, hands tucked into the pockets of a worn denim jacket, hair streaked with gray, eyes I hadn't seen in over 20 years, was the last person on earth I ever expected to see again. My father. The man who walked out of my life when I was 12. The man whose name I hadn't said out loud in a decade. The man who, according to my mother, was as good as dead. I backed away from the door like it might explode. This isn't real, I told myself. You're tired. You worked 10 hours. You skipped lunch. This is your brain being cruel. Another knock. Emily, a voice called out softly. I know you're home. That was when I knew. No one said my name like that anymore. Not slowly. Not like it still mattered. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, my back against the coat closet, staring at the door as if it were a courtroom door about to open and sentence me. I hadn't seen my father since the night he left. That memory came rushing back whether I wanted it to or not. I was 12 years old, sitting on the stairs, clutching my backpack because my mother had told me to pack, just in case. My father's voice was loud, angry, but not at me. It was worse than that. He wasn't yelling for anything. He was yelling to escape something. Then silence. Then the front door closing. I waited for it to open again. It never did. For years after that, I imagined surprise visits. Letters. Phone calls. Apologies. They stopped coming around age 16. By 18, I told myself I didn't care. By 25, I believed it. And now at 36, he was standing on my porch like he'd just gone out for milk and come back late. Emily, he said again, closer now. Please. Just open the door. I stood up slowly. Every part of me screamed, don't do it. But another part, the part that still remembered sitting on the stairs, walked forward anyway. I unlocked the door. The moment it opened, we just stared at each other. He looked older. Thinner. His shoulders slumped in a way I didn't remember. But his eyes, those were the same. Brown. Tired. Careful. Like he was always measuring how much space he was allowed to take up. I won't come in unless you ask, he said quickly. I needed to see you. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. I hadn't planned for this. Hadn't rehearsed lines in the mirror. Hadn't decided whether I'd scream, cry, or slam the door in his face. Instead, I stepped aside. I'm making dinner, I said flatly. You can sit. Or not. Your choice. He nodded like he was afraid any sudden movement might make me change my mind, and stepped inside. The house felt different with him in it. Smaller. Like the walls remembered him. He sat at the edge of the couch, hands clasped, eyes scanning the room, not in judgment but in quiet awe. You did good, he said softly. This place, it's you. You don't know me, I replied. Sharper than I intended. I know, he said. That's why I'm here. I went back to the kitchen, shoved the lasagna into the oven, and leaned against the counter, gripping the edge until my knuckles went white. I didn't want explanations. I wanted answers. There's a difference. We sat in silence while the oven preheated. The ticking clock on the wall felt unbearably loud. Finally, I turned around. "Why now?" I asked. "Why after all this time?" He took a deep breath. "Because I'm running out of time." The words landed heavy. I laughed once bitterly. "That's your reason? You show up because you're running out of time." "Yes," he said. "And because you deserve the truth." The truth. That word again. Everyone always said they'd tell me the truth. My mother, my aunts, even therapists, but no one ever agreed on what it was. I folded my arms. "You walked out on us." "I know. You didn't call." "I know. You didn't come back." "I tried," he said quietly. "That stopped me." "Tried how?" I demanded. He looked down at his hands. "Your mother didn't tell you everything." There it was. The line I'd heard my whole life, from both sides, always followed by silence. "I don't want excuses," I said. "I'm not here to excuse myself," he replied. "I'm here to tell you what really happened, and to ask for something I don't deserve." The oven beeped. Perfect timing. I pulled the lasagna out, set it on the counter, and turned to face him again. "You have 10 minutes, I said. "Then you leave." He nodded. And then he said something that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. "Emily, I didn't leave you. I was forced out." The room spun. "That's not true," I said automatically. "I went to court," he continued. "Your mother filed a restraining order. Said I was unstable. Dangerous." My chest tightened. She wouldn't lie about that. He met my eyes. She was scared. And someone helped her. "Who?" He swallowed. "Her brother. My Uncle Mark. The man who stepped into my life right after my father disappeared. The man who taught me to ride a bike. Who paid for my college books. Who walked me down the aisle at my wedding. The man I trusted more than anyone." I felt sick. "You're lying," I whispered. "I wish I were," my father said. "I stayed away because I was told if I came near you again, I'd lose everything, including my freedom." The silence that followed felt like a crack forming beneath my feet, because if he was telling the truth, then my entire childhood had been built on a lie. And this surprise visit wasn't just reopening old wounds. It was about to destroy the only family I thought I had left. The stories that don't match. I didn't sleep that night. After my father left, after he stood awkwardly in my doorway like a guest who'd overstayed his welcome but was terrified to leave, I locked the door and slid down against it, my back pressed to the wood, my hands shaking. He hadn't begged. That unsettled me more than if he had. He'd simply said, "I'll be staying at the Motel 8 on Route 23. If you want to talk again, I'll be there tomorrow. Not if you forgive me. If you want to talk." That confidence, or maybe resignation, followed me through the night like a ghost. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of my childhood like it was evidence in a trial I never knew was happening. My mother crying at the kitchen table. My Uncle Mark showing up with groceries, his arm tight around her shoulders. "He's not coming back, Em," he'd said gently. "But I've got you." And he had. Mark was the one who came to my school plays, who helped me move into my dorm, who sat in the front row at my wedding, smiling so wide it made my cheeks hurt just looking at him. Why would he lie? And yet, why would my father make this up? At 3:17 a.m., I finally got out of bed and opened the old plastic storage bin I kept in the hall closet. Inside were relics of a life I rarely revisited. Elementary school art projects, birthday cards, and one thin manila envelope labeled Dad in my mother's handwriting. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were 3 things: a copy of a restraining order, a court notice, and 1 letter. The restraining order was real, signed by a judge. My father's name printed clearly in black ink. The court notice showed a missed hearing, and the letter, creased yellowed, was addressed to me. I sat on the floor and opened it with trembling fingers. "Emily, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if your mother will even give it to you. But I need you to know that I love you more than anything in this world. I never wanted to leave. I was told staying would hurt you more than going away. If that turns out to be a lie, then I'm so sorry. Please forgive me someday. Love, Dad. My throat closed. This letter had been written when I was 12, and I had never seen it before. The next morning, I drove to my mother's house. She still lived in the same ranch-style home in Dayton, Ohio. Same cracked driveway. Same blue shutters. Same wind chimes hanging by the porch that clinked softly in the breeze. She opened the door wearing her robe, surprise flashing across her face. "Emily? You didn't call." "I need to talk to you," I said. "Now." Her mouth tightened, but she stepped aside. The house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. Familiar, safe, and suddenly foreign. We sat at the kitchen table where I'd done homework for years. "I saw Dad," I said. The coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the tile. She stared at the shards like they might explain something. "He shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Why?" I asked. "Because you didn't want him to be? Or because you were afraid of what he'd say?" She looked up at me then and I saw it, real fear. "You don't understand," she said. "I did what I had to do." "Did you?" I asked quietly. "Because I just found a letter he wrote me. One you never gave me." Her face drained of color. "You went through my things?" she snapped. "No," I said. "I went through mine." Silence stretched between us. Finally, she sat down heavily. "Mark helped me," she said. "Your father was unstable, drinking, angry. I was scared." "Scared of him hurting you?" I asked. She hesitated. "Scared of him leaving us with nothing," she admitted. That hit harder than I expected. "So you took everything first," I said. She flinched. "You don't know the whole story." "Then tell me," I said. "Because right now, none of this adds up." She stared at the table for a long moment. "Your father wanted to move," she said finally. "Across the state. New job. New start. I didn't want to leave my family. Mark said he'd help me if things went bad." "And things went bad," I said. "He got angry," she insisted. "We fought. Loudly. But he never hit you," I said. She didn't answer. That was all the answer I needed. "You let me believe he abandoned me," I said, my voice shaking. "For 24 years. Tears filled her eyes. "I thought it would be easier." "For who?" I asked. She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. "I didn't think he'd stay gone forever," she said. "Mark said it was temporary, just until things cooled down." "Mark again." I stood up. "I need to talk to him," I said. Her head snapped up. "No, don't." "Why?" I demanded. "What is he hiding?" She didn't answer. I drove straight to Mark's house. He lived in a 2-story colonial, immaculate lawn, American flag hanging proudly from the porch. The house of a man who'd always done everything right. He opened the door with a smile that faded when he saw my face. He said. "What's wrong?" "We need to talk," I said. Inside, everything was spotless. Family photos lined the walls, me included. Graduation, wedding, holidays. He gestured to the couch. "I saw Dad," I said. His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't have," he replied. That was it. No concern, no curiosity, just control. "You helped Mom get a restraining order," I said. "Yes. You told her he was dangerous. He was unpredictable. You told the court he missed the hearing on purpose," I said. "He did." "No," I said. "He says he was never notified." Mark leaned back, crossing his arms. "He's lying." "Then why did he write me a letter?" I asked. "Why hide it from me?" Mark stood abruptly. "Because children don't need complicated truths," he said sharply. "They need stability." "You decided that for me?" I asked. "I protected you," he snapped. "Your father would have dragged you through chaos." Or maybe, I said, my voice trembling, you didn't want to lose your place. He froze. Your place, he repeated. You stepped in, I said. You became the hero, the provider, the father figure. That's not fair, he said. Isn't it? I pressed. What did you really gain by pushing him out? His face hardened. Your father was a risk, he said. And risks get removed. The words chilled me. That wasn't concern. That was strategy. I need space, I said. From all of this. He nodded stiffly. Be careful, Emily. Digging up the past doesn't always give you peace. I left shaking. That night I drove to the Motel 8. My father's room smelled faintly of coffee and old carpet. He looked surprised and relieved when he opened the door. You came, he said. I need proof, I said. Not stories. He nodded and reached into his duffel bag. He pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of court filings, emails, old voicemails saved on a cheap recorder. One voice made my blood run cold. Uncle Mark. You need to stay away, his voice said on the tape. Or this gets ugly. I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of it all crushing my chest. They erased you, I whispered. They tried, my father said. I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face. Why didn't you fight harder? I asked. He swallowed. Because every time I tried, I was told you'd pay the price. And for the first time, I believed him. Because lies this deep don't happen by accident. And this surprise visit wasn't just changing my life. It was forcing me to choose between the family who raised me and the father I never got to know. When the past refuses to stay buried, I thought the truth would feel like relief. That once I knew what really happened, the tight knot in my chest would loosen, the noise in my head would quiet, and everything would finally make sense. Instead, it felt like standing in the middle of a demolished house, walls gone, roof missing, memories scattered everywhere, and realizing I was the one expected to rebuild it. I didn't tell anyone what I'd discovered. Not my husband, Ryan. Not my friends. Not even my mother. For days, I went through the motions of my life like a ghost. I woke up, went to work at the insurance office downtown, answered emails, smiled at coworkers, nodded through meetings. I came home, made dinner, watched TV beside Ryan, laughed at the right moments. But inside I was unraveling. Because every memory I had now came with a question mark attached. Had my childhood been safe? Or simply controlled? Ryan noticed first. You're somewhere else lately, he said one night as we lay in bed, the room dark except for the soft glow of his phone screen. Did something happen at work? I turned on my side, facing away from him. My dad came back, I said quietly. The phone lowered. What do you mean, came back? I saw him, I said. He showed up. Ryan sat up. Emily, your dad left when you were a kid. I know, I whispered. That's what I thought too. I told him everything. The visit, the letter, the recordings, Mark's role. Ryan listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. When I finished, the room felt heavier. Do you believe him? He asked finally. I don't know, I admitted. But I believe something was taken from me. He reached for my hand. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? I didn't answer. The next morning I called in sick and drove to the cemetery. I hadn't planned to. I just found myself turning the wheel in that direction. Like my hands remembered something my mind didn't. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was buried there. She died when I was 15. She was the one adult from my childhood who'd never spoken badly about my father. He's complicated, she used to say. But he loves you. At the time I dismissed it. Standing in front of her headstone now, I wished I hadn't. I don't know who to be mad at, I whispered. And I don't know who I am without all this. The wind rustled the trees. No answers came. That afternoon my father called. I didn't want to pressure you, he said quickly. I just wanted to check in. I want to see you again, I said. But not like before. What do you mean? I don't want stories, I said. I want reality. Day by day. I want to know who you are now. He exhaled. That's fair. We agreed to meet at a diner halfway between Columbus and Dayton. A neutral place. America runs on diners. Places where strangers sit side by side, sharing coffee in silence. Felt fitting. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting in a booth by the window, stirring his coffee like he had nowhere else to be. Hi, I said. Hi, he replied, standing halfway before thinking better of it. We sat. For a while we talked about nothing important. Weather, traffic, the waitress who called everyone Han. Then I asked, what happened after you left? He didn't flinch this time. I drank, he said. A lot. Then I stopped. Then I worked. I moved around. Tried to build something that felt like a life. Why didn't you try harder to find me? I asked. He looked me straight in the eyes. Because every time I got close, Mark showed up. My grip tightened on my mug. He followed you? He monitored me, my father said. Threatened me. Told me you were better off without me. I swallowed hard. And you believed him? I believed he had power, he said. And I was tired. For the first time I saw him not as the man who left, but as a man who lost. Do you want something from me? I asked quietly. He shook his head. I want to give you something. What? The choice, he said. To decide for yourself who I am. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. That evening I got a call from Mark. I heard you've been asking questions, he said. Funny, I replied. I was about to say the same thing. We met at his house again. This time I didn't sit. I know about the threats, I said. I heard the recordings. His face went pale. You shouldn't have those. You tried to erase my father, I said. And you lied to me my entire life. I did what was necessary, he said tightly. For who? I demanded. Mom? Or yourself? He looked away. He would have ruined everything, Mark said. Your mother needed stability. You needed consistency. And you needed control, I said. He slammed his hand on the table. I kept you safe. From what? I shot back. From knowing my own father? Silence. You crossed a line, I said. And you don't get to decide what happens next. His voice softened. Emily, if you keep going down this road, people will get hurt. I laughed bitterly. They already did. That night, my mother showed up at my door unannounced. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling. He told me you're pulling away, she said. That you're confused. I'm not confused, I replied. I'm awake. She sat down slowly. Mark helped us, she said again. I was scared. I didn't think you'd understand. You didn't give me the chance, I said. She reached for my hand. Please don't let this destroy our family. I pulled my hand back. Our family was destroyed a long time ago, I said quietly. You just made sure I never saw the wreckage. She cried. And for the first time I didn't comfort her. In the weeks that followed, my life split in two. On one side, the family I knew. On the other, the truth I was learning. I had coffee with my father. Walks. Long conversations about music, books, politics, things we should have shared decades ago. He didn't try to be my dad. He tried to be honest. That mattered. And slowly, painfully, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't choosing between people. I was choosing between stories. The one I'd been told, and the one I was finally discovering. And one of them had to break. The day the truth spoke out loud. The email arrived on a Thursday morning. Subject line, family meeting. No greeting. No explanation. Just a time, a place, and a sentence at the bottom that made my stomach drop. We need to settle this before it goes any further. I didn't need to ask who we was. Mark had finally realized I wasn't backing down. I showed the email to Ryan. You don't have to go, he said immediately. I do, I replied, because if I don't, they'll keep controlling the narrative. The meeting was set for Sunday afternoon at my mother's house, the same house where the lie began. When I pulled into the driveway, my father was already there. He stood beside his car, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, looking like a man waiting to be judged. I didn't know if I was invited, he said. I invited you, I replied. His eyes widened slightly. Are you sure? No, I said honestly. But it's time. Inside, the air was thick with tension. My mother sat on the couch, tissues in hand. Mark stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Ryan stayed close to me, his presence grounding. No one offered drinks. No one smiled. I'll start, Mark said. This has gone far enough. No, I said calmly. It hasn't gone far enough. That's the problem. He turned to my father. You shouldn't be here. You don't get to decide that anymore, I replied. My mother spoke then, her voice shaking. Emily, please. Let's not do this. Do what? I asked. Tell the truth. Silence. I took a deep breath. When I was 12, I began. My father disappeared. I spent years believing he chose to abandon me. That belief shaped my entire life. How I trust, how I love, how I see myself. Mark shifted uncomfortably. That belief was false, I continued. And every person in this room helped keep it alive. My mother began to cry. Mark stepped forward. I protected you. You protected your version of events. I shot back. Not me. He turned to my father. You were unstable. Maybe, my father said quietly, but I was her father. And you would have ruined her life, Mark insisted. My father met his gaze. You don't know that. I know you, Mark said coldly. And I know you, my father replied. You always needed control. That was when Mark lost his composure. I stepped up, he shouted. When you failed. No, I said firmly. You stepped in. The difference hung heavy in the air. You manipulated Mom when she was scared, I continued. You filed paperwork I never knew about. You intercepted letters. You threatened my father. Mark's face turned red. You think I did this for fun? I think you did it because you couldn't stand not being needed, I replied. The room went silent. My mother whispered, Mark. He looked at her, desperation creeping into his voice. I did it for us. No, she said softly. You did it for you. That broke him. His shoulders sagged. His voice dropped. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did, I said. And now there are consequences. What do you want? He demanded. I looked at him steadily. I want my story back. I turned to my mother. I love you, I said. But I need honesty from you now and going forward. No more rewriting the past to make it easier to live with. She nodded through tears. I'm sorry. Then I turned to my father. I don't know what our relationship will look like, I said. But it will be on my terms. He nodded. That's all I've ever wanted. Finally, I faced Mark. I need distance, I said. For a while. Maybe longer. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. I hope someday you understand, he said quietly. I do, I replied. That doesn't mean I accept it. The aftermath was messy. My mother fell into a depression. Mark stopped calling. Family gatherings became awkward or non-existent. But for the first time in my life, the silence felt honest. I started therapy again. This time not to cope with abandonment, but to untangle betrayal. I learned something surprising. You can miss people who hurt you, and you can love people you don't trust. Healing isn't choosing sides. It's choosing yourself. One evening, my father and I sat on my back porch watching the sunset. I don't expect you to make up for lost time, I said. I wouldn't know how, he replied gently. We sat in companionable silence. I do want you in my life, I said finally. But slowly. He smiled. I'm very good at slow. I laughed, a real laugh, not the practice one I'd worn for years. That night I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Not because she'd changed on the outside, but because she finally knew who she was without the lie. And that knowledge was terrifying and freeing. The life I finally chose. People think truth comes with fireworks, a dramatic reveal, a villain exposed, a hero redeemed, but the truth didn't arrive like that. It came quietly in the spaces where lies used to live. 3 months passed after the family meeting. No apologies were rewritten. No one magically became better people. Life simply rearranged itself. I stopped pretending everything was fine. And that changed everything. The first real change showed up in my marriage. Ryan and I had always been solid, comfortable, predictable, safe. But I realized how much of myself I'd been holding back without even knowing it. One night after dinner I said, I think I've been afraid of meeting anyone. He looked at me carefully. Because you were taught that people leave? Yes, I admitted. Or worse, they stay and lie. He reached across the table and took my hand. I'm not your father, he said gently. And I'm not your uncle. I know, I said. But I'm learning that now. We started talking differently after that. More honestly. More vulnerably. Love, I realized, isn't proven by staying. It's proven by showing up as yourself. My mother and I began over slowly. No pretending. No emotional shortcuts. Some days were easy, coffee, small talk, familiar rhythms. Other days were brutal. I don't know how to forgive myself, she said once, staring out the window. You don't have to, I replied. You just have to stop lying to protect yourself. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. We're not close the way we used to be, but we're real. And that matters more. Mark disappeared from my daily life. No angry messages. No dramatic goodbyes. Just distance. And for the first time I understood something painful and important. Someone can love you deeply and still harm you profoundly. Mark didn't wake up wanting to be the villain. He woke up wanting to be necessary. And that need cost me a father. I didn't forgive him. Not yet. But I stopped carrying his choices like they were mine. My father moved to a small apartment near the river. Nothing fancy. Just clean. Quiet. We met once a week at first. Coffee. Walks. Occasional dinners. We talked about the years we lost. Not with bitterness, but with respect for the grief. I used to imagine you at every age, he told me once. 13. 16. 20. I swallowed hard. I imagined you forgetting me. I never did, he said. I just didn't know how to fight without hurting you. For the first time I believed that. One Saturday morning he asked, Can I come to your house? I hesitated. Then I said yes. He stood in my living room like it was sacred ground. You built a good life, he said quietly.